Go! Joe Brady fired by the Carolina Panthers. Should Brian Kelly make Joe his new offensive coordinator? Because, of course, Joe Brady is a big reason why we had the absolute best college football offense of all time and definitely the best in LSU history. So we're going to go through the pros and cons today, and obviously I'm going to need your help, guys, because all of us love Joe Brady, but this may not necessarily mean that this is the best move for LSU. So I think he was dealt a bad hand at Carolina, because in the NFL, you're not really going to succeed if you go from Teddy Bridgewater, who is meh, to Sam Darnold, who is the worst quarterback in the NFL. And look, I think the timing of this firing is very strange. I don't think anyone really had Joe Brady losing his job right now, but I think part of it is Matt Rule, who is, very well versed in the college game, understands that firing Joe Brady now may not necessarily be the only thing best for the Panthers, but also the best thing for Joe Brady, because right now coaching staffs are getting filled really quickly at the college level because of the early signing period, and maybe Joe Brady expressed some frustration with Matt Rule saying that he wanted to go elsewhere. So obviously this is best for Joe Brady, who really didn't have a future with the Carolina Panthers, best for Matt Rule, who was probably frustrated with Joe Brady, and this could be the best thing for LSU if they want to bring back Brady. So let's start with more positives about Joe Brady. The first is obviously what he did in 2019 was simply incredible. He won the Burrow Award, which goes to the nation's top assistant coach. He brought in a more passing-oriented offense, and he helped shape Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase, and obviously everyone else, into one of the best offenses we've ever seen. So that's obviously a major plus for Joe Brady. Also, when he came in as the assistant receivers coach to Mickey Joseph, our wide receiver rotation not only tightened, but our wide receiver rotation got a lot better. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Terrace Marshall all took a next step in their development. And we cannot forget, even though he wasn't the tight ends coach, he also was a big reason why Thad Moss took that next step. So obviously those are all major pluses. And look, 2019 doesn't happen without the innovation that Joe Brady brought to the LSU offense. And that's where the positives for me, guys, begins to end. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil, because obviously I give a conclusion at the end of this video, but you guys deserve the answer right now. This is not the move LSU needs to make. We don't even know if he wants to be at the college level. This was a guy who was getting NFL head coaching interviews last year. So this was a guy who came from the NFL, obviously with the New Orleans Saints, came to the college level, and look, obviously he had a ton of success his 1 year at the college game, but at the same time, you saw how quickly he jolted back to the NFL. And look, it was an NFL offensive coordinator opportunity. So I'm not blaming him for making that move, but the bottom line is Joe Brady came from the NFL and has spent more time in the NFL than he has in college, even though he had his experiences when he was at Penn State. And you guys have seen his resume. Joe Brady's phenomenal, but I'm not sure if he is a college guy. And look, I don't want to go too deep into this, but a lot of people keep pointing out that Joe Brady doesn't like to recruit, which may or may not be true. Once again, I see a lot of people I respect say that Joe Brady is not someone that likes to recruit, but at the same time, Joe Brady, last I checked, was a big reason why Eric Gilbert came to LSU. And once again, AG2 was a disaster, but let's not forget that that was one of the most impressive recruiting pulls ever at LSU. So I don't know about Joe Brady not wanting to recruit. I just don't know the extent of the truth of that. But still, there are asterisks surrounding Joe Brady's willingness to recruit. And that is obviously something that you have to do at the college level. I think it's more important, though, for coordinators to be good in scheme and actually coaching football more so than recruiting. The head coach can handle a lot of the recruiting duties that the offensive or defensive coordinator may not be able to do. But at the same time, it is something that is just out there about Joe Brady, and that's something that is tough to overcome. The third thing here is, how good is Joe Brady? So look, he is obviously really talented. Once again, I'll say it again. He is a reason why we had 2019. But he's a part of the reason. How big of a reason was 2019 attributed to Joe Brady. You can make the case that he is a smaller piece of the pie than we would like to think. There will never be a better assistant coach hire, especially a non-coordinator hire, than Ed Orgeron bringing in Joe Brady. But Joe Brady, while he did unlock a more passing-oriented offense, let's be honest, the reason why it succeeded is because of Joe Burrow. And Jamar, Justin, Terrace, Clyde, Thad, and the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, that's the reason why it succeeded. I know we all know that Joe Burrow was absolutely freaking incredible, but he wasn't just incredible. He was perfect in every game. Joe Burrow did not register a quarterback rating of less than 85 in 15 games. That is wild. It is really hard to be that freaking good. Just to let you know, 70 is a good QBR, and Joe Burrow's lowest QBR was 85. He only had 2 games where he didn't throw for 300 yards. The Georgia Southern game, where he went for 278, 5 touchdowns and no picks. And the other one was the Florida game, 291 yards through the air, so he barely missed 300. And that was also one of his better rushing performances. So all of that just to say, Joe Burrow is what made that offense really, really, really special. And once again, it was Joe Brady's idea to spread things open, but it was also kind of a miracle that every single person at every single position took an NFL-level leap. So, yes, Joe Brady is talented, but he also, we always say Ed Orgeron caught lightning in a bottle. You could definitely make the case Joe Brady is the one who caught more lightning in the bottle, which then leads to this next topic, which it is true that Steve Ensminger was the one who actually called most of the plays. Now, Joe Brady had heavy, and I mean heavy input on what actually happened on those plays. So I'm not really saying that Joe Brady didn't call the plays. It's just he didn't call a lot of them. It was the Slinger who actually called a majority of what you guys saw in 2019. Now, it wasn't Slinger's offense. It was Joe Brady's offense and Joe Brady's passing concepts, but Steve Ensminger was still the one between the headsets who actually called the shots, which is part of the reason why I think Joe Brady's getting fired so quickly with the Panthers, because, well, this was really the Panthers, his first time being the offensive coordinator in Carolina, which kind of makes sense because Joe Brady's suggestion of getting DJ Mangus and Jake Peetz was also not the absolute best for LSU this year. So, look, you do have to start to wonder that maybe Joe Brady, as great as he was, and winning the Broyles Award and all those great things, maybe we can attribute that to very small sample size, right? And once again, hiring Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator goes against every move that Scott Woodward and Brian Kelly is trying to do, which is turning the page. Last year, we tried to dip back into 2019, and it didn't work. And it was Joe Brady's hires that actually were the ones that didn't get it to work. Now, once again, Max Johnson has a huge input on that, and the offensive line, and the list goes on and on. But the truth still remains the same. We tried to do the 2019 offense this last year. Once again, it wasn't Joe Brady's 2019 offense. It was 2 people trying to implement it, but it didn't work. It just did not work. So the bottom line is, if you did bring back Joe Brady, it doesn't fit into what Scott Woodward's trying to do, which is trying to move on past 2019. And at the same time, I think Brian Kelly doesn't want any relics from 2019 back either. Boom! Looking at you right now. Yes, you've watched this entire video. I'm going to need you to comment down below and give me your educated take. Should Joe Brady be the guy for Brian Kelly? Now, I did a Twitter poll on this, and surprisingly, it was a 2-3 in favor of Joe Brady coming back. It's not surprising that many people said yes. I thought it would be more 50-50. I thought there would be more skepticism in bringing Joe Brady back to LSU. And once again, the firing is very interesting because now is the time that there are a lot of offensive coordinator openings. I do feel Joe Brady, a guy like Caleb Williams, is good enough to run the Joe Brady offense. So I would be on the lookout for Oklahoma potentially being a landing destination for Joe. And look, if you were to come back to LSU, I would I would be open arms to that decision. I just don't think it's the best. I just don't. Especially if Max Johnson is the one who's going to be your quarterback next season, because obviously the 2019 offense that we tried to run this year was a disaster. There's no other way around it. So yeah, I would seriously contemplate it. As far as who I would like LSU to pursue for this offensive coordinator opening, look no further than Jeff Grimes, which is ironic because Jeff Grimes was my number one candidate last year. He left BYU to be the offensive coordinator for Dave Aranda at Baylor, and believe it or not, Jeff Grimes is actually one of the favorites for the Broyles Award this year for the nation's top assistant. What he's done at Baylor offensively and what he's done to Dave Aranda's team overall is just simply incredible. And I also think one thing he and Brian Kelly will align themselves on is great offensive line play, as Jeff Grimes is one of the best offensive line coaches and developers in the country. We saw it here in Baton Rouge. So I would love Jeff Grimes to be the next LSU offensive coordinator. But once again, Grimes is probably one of those guys that has proven himself not only at BYU, but now at Baylor. He probably wants another head coaching job, but we'll just see how that plays out. Boom! Obviously, pretty cool stuff. Texas Bowl, January 4th in Houston against Kansas State. I think that's an interesting matchup. I'm excited to see what Brad Davis and company is able to do. So obviously, we'll touch on that in upcoming videos. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Very interesting. I love talking about Joe Brady, though, man. Anytime you can talk about this, it's a good thing. And we are doing tacos tonight. Let's